My fellow indigenous Ugandans, here I am again on Truth to Free Africa. Truth to Free Africa. Truth to Free Africa. We have to inform our fellow Africans about the situation in Uganda, Rwanda, and Congo once again. Because all that has been told about Rwanda, Uganda, and Congo has all been, most of it has been deception. Yes, people died in genocides, but even then, the only genocide we hear about is the Rwanda genocide. And there is a reason for that. The reason is that the people who committed genocide, in fact, the people who caused the genocide in Rwanda and participated in the genocide in Rwanda, are the people being used or have been used by Britain and the former American administration for access to Uganda as a transit center for all the resources from Congo, and Uganda as a country with oil, a country with several kinds of minerals, a country with good agri-business land for Western corporations, Western agri-business corporations. So having said that, I'm here to inform you, fellow good citizens of Uganda and fellow good citizens of the world, that Uganda, having been usurped by the Rwandese, Burundian Tutsi, British puppet usurper dictatorship, and also having been Ugandan opposition politics, having been usurped by the same group that actually committed genocide in Uganda of over 1.5 million, to have been able to usurp the government of a host country, my homeland, Uganda. These individuals were helped by Britain. In fact, the main character, the main British character was this man by the name of William Pike. William Pike, we've been recently informed by the usurper dictator of the Ugandan government, Museveni, the Rwandese Tutsi refugee, that indeed William Pike is what I had suspected him to be, that indeed William Pike is a British, or was a British MI6 agent. William Pike passed himself off as a British journalist, and actuality he was the Ajit propagandist for the Rwandese, Burundian Tutsi refugees throughout the time they were carrying out the fake anti-dictatorship bush war in Uganda to usurp the Ugandan government. These Rwandese Tutsi refugees had lived in Uganda for many years. They had been able to learn most languages in Uganda. So the most evil thing they did is they imposted as indigenous Ugandans with all the indigenous Ugandan names from different tribes of Uganda. However, they mostly passed themselves off as Banyankole, a group which they are very closely, they have a close resemblance. A group which within Uganda they have a close resemblance. Actually, with much of Western Uganda, the Rwandese Tutsis have a close resemblance with mostly the people from Western Uganda. But this crisscrosses through other tribes, because you African people can look almost any other kind of person. Because as said, Africa has the largest genetic diversity in the world. Nevertheless, these Rwandese Tutsis infiltrated the western part of Uganda when they ran from Rwanda, where they actually didn't intentionally do it, but they as a reaction to what was going in Rwanda, they ran to Uganda for survival. So Uganda was welcoming. We allowed them into our country. Unfortunately, these same people colluded with the British and the American administration of Reagan, Margaret Thatcher, later Blair, later the Bushes, later Clinton, and then, in fact, sadly enough, Obama took on, from the advice, I'm sure, of Clinton's, to support these same evil Rwandese, Burundian Tutsi refugees who usurped the Ugandan government after having deceived their way and committed genocide of over 1.5 million indigenous Ugandans. So, my point here is, since our opposition politics has also been taken over by the Rwandese, Burundian Tutsi refugees, among those is Colonel Dr. Besigye, yeah, a doctor who turns out to have been one of the genocidaries in the Luwero Triangle with Museveni and Kagame. Paul Kagame, believe it or not, the current president of Rwanda, was one of those people who carried out the genocide in Luwero Triangle with Museveni, Besigye, Mugisha Muntu, Amama Mbabazi, Byanyima, are Rwandese, I suspect, who came maybe in the early family which came to Uganda in the early 1920s. I know this by the fact that when the Rwandese ran to Uganda, they were told that they could go and stay with their relatives who had already been in Uganda. Apparently, we had a lot of economic refugees from Rwanda that came to Uganda in the early 1900s. And these people some of them were very well established. So when Museveni and his family ran to Uganda, this family of Byanyima adopted him. But the one thing that the Rwandese, Burundian Tutsis have done evilly well is to disguise themselves, to become sleeper cells, which in this case they became the true description of a sleeper cell, because they had no Ugandans' interests at heart. All they were was very selfish to have wanted to usurp a government of a host country. So Museveni and his Rwandese Tutsi kinsmen deceived indigenous Ugandan that they were not as Rwandese, but as indigenous Ugandan by Nyankole or Westerners. And in fact, many of them were also in Buganda, deceiving the Baganda as if they were Baganda, joining up with they know each other. The Rwandese who came and disguised themselves as Banyankole, and the Rwandese who came and disguised themselves as Baganda, these families knew each other from Rwanda and they kept contact, but whenever you came around them, they spoke Luganda language wherever they settled. So that's how they were able to deceive indigenous Ugandans, to have them join into the anti-dictatorship bush war. Little did we know that the Rwandese had another plan, not to free Uganda from dictatorship. In fact, they went on to have built by now, the worst dictatorship in Uganda, most genocidal dictatorship in the history of independent Uganda. Well, I don't know if we can even say Uganda has been independent. Since we were much more independent when the British were there, because we were able, our ancestors, the kings, were able to keep the British at bay, where they even didn't let the British take our land. But in this time, the British figured out another way, and that way was to use these Rwandese Tutsi refugees who actually came to Uganda during the time when Britain was still I can't call them let me put it this way, when Uganda was still a protectorate of Britain. So this is the whole situation in Uganda right now. We have these Rwandese Tutsis that came into Uganda at the time of Uganda as a protectorate of Britain. So Britain let them in. So since then, Britain has, it seems, had been in touch with these refugees through all the education. They, in fact, since Britain was still in Uganda in our education structure, they were able, by the way, to pass these guys through, make them Anglican bishops, give them scholarship to go and study abroad within Uganda, where they themselves, the Rwandese, were already changing their names to indigenous Ugandans, learning the languages. That's how they came to be able to deceive indigenous Ugandans. Because sometimes you explain this to people, they don't understand how a refugee group could take over a government. This is actually new since the independence of Africa. Only recently we've seen it being tried in other countries, because the neo-colonizers, by the way, I should emphasize to all Africans that neo-colonialism is real, and neo-colonialism is worse than colonialism, because during the time of colonialism, we knew the Europeans had come to Africa, invaded our countries. Those who could fight them fought them off, like our ancestors, our kings in Uganda fought them to a standstill, where Britain only could settle for Uganda as a protectorate, where they could not take our land. Okay? But neo-colonialism is more dangerous because of the fact that these neo-colonialists have now managed to use even some of the citizens of the countries to practically do the British dirty work, where they usually get Africans on fringes of society. Just like we see in Uganda, they looked for Africans on fringes of society in Uganda, who were the Tutsi, who were the refugees. By the way, also Southern Sudanese. So for Ugandans, we've been very, very unlucky. What has happened is, Amin was a Nubian, one of the soldiers brought in by the British to control Uganda. To fight our kings. Those wars that the British were fighting, they were using mostly Africans against Africans. They used the Nubians. And Amin was one of those people who said to have been a Nubian, by the fact that he's even a Muslim. Most Nubians are Muslims. So he was used by the British to actually even go to Kenya and fight the Kenyan freedom fighters, the Mau Mau, and in fact committed genocide. But he was never tried because he was under British flag. The British protected him. So the British brought him in power in Uganda thinking that he was going to be a yes man, but he gave them the boat and they got mad and blamed it on Ugandans. We were not responsible for Amin coming to power. In fact, most Ugandans used to despise Amin because he wasn't that educated. But apparently he did even better than even Obote and the Rwandese Tutsi refugees, who are all got doctorates, got masters, they are lawyers, but the worst killers that Uganda has ever known, and even the whole of Africa has ever known. They're the most psychotic killers. I am saying, if the Europeans can talk about Hitler in the most descriptive ways, we indigenous Ugandans have to talk about the Rwandese in the most descriptive ways of how psychotic and murderous they have been to our people in Uganda in the process of having usurped our government. So it's with all this, I always have to say all these things because most people will not understand when you come saying refugees control your country or refugees took over your government. But this is really possible. And this, I think, in the history of Africa, this is really the first time that this has happened. We saw it being tried in Central Africa by the French. They tried to do the same thing with the West Africans who had gone to do gold mining and diamond mining in Central Africa. They tried to get the Muslims within that group to take over the government of Central Africa. But the Central Africa got the clue before, actually got immediately aware of these Seleka West African gold miners, diamond miners trying to take over the government. And they organized all the Central Africans, religious, Western religions, African religions, all the people, different traditional leaders joined to fight Seleka, which was actually, now we know it was a French Western guerrilla outfit trying to take over the wealth of Central Africa. Because once they have these kind of people on fringes of society in a country, they can easily use them to kill the citizens of the country even though they are fellow Africans. Selfish comes in. And these people also know how to choose the people whose mind they control, whose mind is not well informed. And it's the same situation in Uganda. In Uganda, the Rwandese Tutsis' mind is very controlled, even after colonialism by the Belgians. Mind you, the Belgians had brainwashed the Tutsis to think that they are not black, to think that the straight noses made them white. So these Tutsis have gone ahead to actually believe it. And now they have stretched it to saying that they're Jews, not knowing the history of who Jews are. Because Jews, they right now, as we know, even in the Bible, you can go and look at Luke 21, Deuteronomy, 28. From there, you can read and see what is actually said of the original Hebrews or original chosen people. This has nothing to do with anti-Semitism. In fact, I have even a book right here that I can show you the book. This is the book. I can show you the book. I think most of you can see it. Maybe I'll put it down upside down. Can you read it? Okay. This book says The Moses Mystery, The Egyptian Origins of the Jewish People by Gary Greensburg, author of 101 Myths of the Bible. Okay? Author of 101 Myths of the Bible. This book is by a Jewish white guy. Okay. Having said that, the Tutsis are so clueless. They think that having straight nose makes them white, and now because they want support of any group to take over a neighbor's country, really a host country, a refugee host country. So they're doing everything they can to use all these other people that are greedy for African resources, and now they're saying that they're Jews. That's why we recently saw the Prime Minister of Israel, Netanyahu, go there to visit. Yet this is the same man who doesn't want the few Africans in Israel, 60,000 refugees who are running away from the dictatorship created by France, Britain, and Western countries, putting dictators in Africa and Arabs in Sudan. So Israel should be the country that should embrace these people. Unfortunately, Israel has been chasing these Africans away out of Israel with so much racism. We've seen black people, Africans, being called the N-word in the streets of Israel. We have seen even the Prime Minister, one of his ministers, saying that Africans are a cancer to Israel. Only 60,000 African refugees. Yet this is the man coming to Uganda to work with the Rwandese Tutsi refugee that is claiming to be a Jew because of his straight nose brainwashing from the Belgian. We're coming to work with him. A Rwandese Tutsi genocider that by now has killed over 3 million indigenous Ugandans. Invaded Rwanda, caused the Rwanda genocide. Invaded Congo and looted Congo and committed genocide of over 6 million Congolese people. Yet all this has been hidden from the world news media. And sometimes when people like me talk about these issues, we are suspended from Facebook. And even this YouTube piece I'm doing, I hope YouTube will not block it. It's really sad that we can hear about other people genocide, other people who genocide has been committed on. Jews, Armenians, now we hear the people in Burma, the Muslim, everybody's talking about them. I feel so sad to know that Uganda has lost over 1 million Uganda lost over 1.5 million before the Rwanda genocide by the same people who went and caused the genocide in Rwanda. Yet the Ugandan genocide was hush-hushed by Britain and the former American administrations, only to set up the Rwandese, Museveni, Kagame, as the rulers of Rwanda, as the one who saved the day when genocide took place in Rwanda. Well, actually, they are the ones caused the genocide in Rwanda by having invaded Rwanda and shot down the plane of the president of Rwanda, the majority Hutu people of Rwanda and Burundi. In fact, they shot down the plane with two presidents of both Hutus, both the majority leaders of Rwanda and Burundi. Now you have this small minority Rwandese Tutsi that don't make up even 15% of Rwanda, don't make up even 15% of Burundi, taking over the governments of Uganda, Rwanda, and Congo. By the way, after they invaded Rwanda, they used some excuse that the people committed genocide, ran to Congo, they are going after them, but the whole goal was take over the government of Congo. And they were backed by Clinton, fully backed by Clinton and the British. This information is available. Anyone who wants to find about this information can contact me and subscribe to this station to find about this information. This is true, ladies and gentlemen. This is true, good citizens of the world. I call upon you to help stop genocide in Africa. I call upon you to help stop outsourced genocide in Africa. It's sad. I'm sad because my country, Uganda, since the Rwandese took over the government of Uganda, they've caused another 2 million indigenous Ugandans to die in their quest for trying to create what the American college newsletter, Africa Confidential, called a Tutsi-Hima empire. They're trying to create a Tutsi-Hima empire. They just added the Hima of Uganda because they have killed off most of the Hima, most of the prominent Hima people in Uganda. And they are the ones now impostoring as the Himas of Uganda. So I'm calling the entire African continent and the world to come to the aid of indigenous Ugandans and actually even Congolese, because Congo is still in trouble. Because these Tutsi refugees who use up the government of Uganda, Rwanda, and Congo are still creating proxy wars for them to make sure they stay in power. A minority, ladies and gentlemen. A minority. I keep saying, if Africa could say no to white South African minority apartheid system, why are they allowing a confused, self-hating, wannabe white, Jewish, African minority to oppress over 200 million people in the Great Lakes region? This is insane. This is sad. This is what is true white systemic racism. This is why the term Black Lives Matter matters. This is why the term Black Lives Matter is truly valid. Because I cannot understand how even Obama, through the systemic racism that he was operating, refused to recognize or even do anything about the genocide, about the genocidaries, Museveni, Kagame, and Kabila, who had committed genocide in the Great Lakes region. This disturbs me. This keeps me with sleepless nights, wondering why this could happen to African people and nobody cares. It has gotten so bad that the people in Uganda are afraid to talk about the Rwandese Tutsis. It's only us who are fortunate enough, even us who are abroad. Many Africans, many indigenous Uganda in diaspora, I call them coward. Because in fact, I thank President Trump, because President Trump even said it, you are cowards. But I would like to inform President Trump that indigenous Ugandans are not really cowards. In fact, all the American wars in Somalia, the Al-Shabaab was defeated by indigenous Ugandans. Except that these indigenous Ugandans are like slave soldiers of the Rwandese, Burundian Tutsi refugees and the British. So the Rwandese Tutsi refugees, since they took over our government, they are the chiefs of staff of Ugandan military. And if a Ugandan may be a chief of staff, He's just a figurehead. If a Ugandan is the chief of police, he's a figurehead. But Ugandans are the ones doing all the dirty work. They're the ones sent to Somalia to fight and kill Somalis. They're the ones getting killed by Somalis. In fact, many Ugandans have been cut up in pieces, just like Black Hawk Down. They've been cut down in pieces, but no American, even media, tried to show how Ugandans were fighting for American puppets in American and British, Rwandese, Burundian, Tutsi refugees who are sending these indigenous Ugandans to fight American wars against the Somalis. These wars in Somalia, yes, we may also be somehow concerned about the situation in Somalia, because we've seen some Muslim fundamentalists doing things in other parts of Africa that are very, very questionable. So that issue doesn't need to have a refugee group usurping a government of Uganda and thinking that your interests are more assured by having a refugee. I think that's a big mistake. Because mind you, these guys are a minority. What about if Ugandans one day, which is coming, change and say enough is enough? These people are ruling indigenous Ugandans through lack of information. And that's why the Rwandese are stopping any kind of information about what they've done to our people, about the fact that they are the ones ruling. They force themselves in the Uganda constitution. But yet you cannot hear anybody talk about the Rwandese being the oppressors. Instead, they talk about the Banyankole, where the Rwandese Tutsis infiltrated and now are impostering as the Banyankole. So the Banyankole get the blame. The people in the Western Uganda get the blame. Well, actually, the Rwandese are also impostering as Baganda. They've been hiding among Baganda, killing Baganda from within Buganda, and the Bagandas not even knowing that the people that they think are their fellow Baganda are actually Rwandese Tutsis who came a long time ago, infiltrated them, adapted their name, adapted their culture, adapted their language, but their goal is to take over Uganda, Rwanda, and Congo. A minority. I say take over Rwanda because even though they come from Rwanda, they're still a minority. They could only come to power through proper democratic means by proving their worth. But they're coming to power through the barrel of the gun. This cannot be allowed in Africa. And this is why I'm calling for plan number 9. And plan number 9 is to outsmart the Rwandese and the British neo-colonial masters. To outsmart them, I can say it openly, and that is refusing to go for plan B, which is all about arms, fighting, killing, and that's where the British want us to go. They want us to go to plan B, and in fact, the puppet usurper of Ugandan opposition politics, the Rwandese puppet usurper, British puppet usurper of Ugandan opposition politics, is now talking about plan B. And there is another Dr. Kiyingi who lives in Australia, another Commonwealth British satellite, yes, British satellite, just like Canada. It's a Commonwealth, a member of the Commonwealth. With respect, they actually accept the Queen as the leader. So this man, Dr. Kiyingi, lives in Australia. He has come and told, I have been on Radio Monansi here in Diaspora Los Angeles. I was on Radio Monansi Renewal program. I was also in the English program. Dr. Kiyingi says that he came to join us at Radio Monansi saying that he has plan B to fight a war against the Rwandese, Burundian, Tutsi refugees. But the thing is that now I have heard rumors that Dr. Kiyingi is also Rwandese, because one thing the Rwandese did, they sent a lot of their children to go to school, abroad, doctors, lawyers, but they're still killers. They're still such liars. They come and tell Ugandans that they want to fight Museveni, their fellow Rwandese Tutsis, but they never do. They just infiltrate any true Ugandan movement that wants to displace the Rwandese out of our country, to expel the Rwandese out of our country, join them only to have them killed from within. So now, what disturbs me? Besigye we know was in Luwero killing people. But what disturbs me about Dr. Kiyingi? Dr. Kiyingi has come and said, oh, after I have heard that Dr. Kiyingi caused the people in Kasese to be killed, This rumor has been going on. Then I've heard the rumor that Dr. Kiyingi is also Rwandese. He's not an indigenous Ugandan. Apart from that, Dr. Kiyingi recently comes out and tells us that a certain Ibrahim Kasozi has betrayed the Plan D, that all the arms consignment that he had allocated to Mr. Ibrahim Kasozi were turned into the dictatorship. Rwandese Tutsi dictatorship took it and then killed the people who were carrying out this mission in Uganda. So now you start to wonder, how could Dr. King be so naive to quickly trust people? So I find something very questionable here. I would like Dr. King to come out and explain to us who he is and where in Uganda he comes from, his family and background. And if Dr. King has again said already, if he's an indigenous Ugandan Muganda, he should understand why this is very important after we have lost 3 million indigenous Ugandans. Anybody who comes and blames me or any Ugandan speaking up against the Rwandese, Burundi and Tutsi refugees and what they've done to our country is actually an enemy of Uganda. So it's up to us indigenous Ugandans to do all we can to inform our people, about what has happened to our country, to inform the world about what has happened. And that's why I'm coming out to Plan 9. Plan 9 is to say no to war. We are going to ask for the Rwandese Tutsi refugee usurper dictatorship to hand over the government of Uganda even before the February elections 2021, because all these Plan Ds are there to confuse us and have us killed so the Rwandese, Burundian Tutsis can consolidate their power. We cannot go into Plan D with people we don't know. We cannot go into Plan D with people already telling us that they've been betrayed by somebody. How do we know that they were betrayed or it wasn't part of their trick to have our people killed and those who had the arms, everything they had planned to go down to the drain? So I question Dr. Kiyingi's recent information that he was betrayed. I do not trust it until I know who Dr. Kiyingi is. Because we had another doctor. They are all doctors, by the way, because they use the doctor, because they know many Ugandans through colonialism, doctor, lawyer, we respect education. So these guys, the Rwandese, this is what they've done. They give each other the titles, general this, General Kanyahaba, General Mugisha, General this, all these titles, just to play with our minds and believe in them. So just because Dr. Kiyingi is a cardiologist, I mean, I can say, well and good, but we cannot trust you, Dr. Kiyingi, especially after you tell us that somebody you trusted had a lot of Ugandans killed and the armed consignment turned into the regime. And then you tell us that this man now is the member of parliament in the Ugandan parliament. This is sad indeed. And for this reason, I call for Plan 9, which is going to ask, or actually to inform the world and also send petition. If it is petitions, send them around. If it's not petition, send delegates to inform the African Union, to inform the UN, to inform the EU, to inform all international organizations to help us find a peaceful transition in Uganda and not allow the Rwandese, Burundian, Tutsi, British neo-colonial puppet usurper dictatorship to again stand for elections in Uganda, because already we know they do not want election in Uganda. They are already attacking the youth. The people power youth are being attacked in Uganda. Many of them are being killed. Many of them are being dismembered. So indigenous Ugandans are saying no more of killing of our people. And for that reason, we are saying no. We are saying no. We are not going to allow them to continue killing our people. So Plan 9 is to organize and ask the Rwandese to leave Uganda alone. No 2021 elections. We need to find a solution to where the Rwandese can leave our country peacefully instead of having to commit genocide, and then the Western countries who have supported them, especially Britain and Israel, to come and say, oh, they didn't know, just like they did in Rwanda. They knew what happened in Rwanda. They knew the people attacked and killed people in Rwanda were the Rwandese Tutsis who had already usurped Uganda government. This information must come out. So why is it that we see in Guyana and Suriname, these same government, Western democracies, fought so hard to not let African leaders in Guyana who had not committed genocide, And in fact, it was the other way around. The Indians had ruled Guyana for 23 years prior to this coalition, multiracial, APNU, AFC group taking over the government of Guyana. Even before they finished their 4 years, 5 years, the Indians were already on them saying that, oh, they did this, they did that. But these are the same Indians who have been in power for 23 years and had actually turned Guyana into a drug transit center and had also killed over 1,000 African Guyanese. Yet the Western countries that are talking about democracy in Guyana, in Suriname, across the border in Brazil, 60% of the population of Brazil is black. And these people, these African people, have been completely almost X'd out of politics of Brazil, education of Brazil, economics of Brazil. They are just in the ghettos, favelas, suffering. We've had even people come and tell us the situation in Brazil. Why aren't the Western countries more concerned about what Brazil is practicing in their own country? Brazil has undeclared apartheid against the African people. In Brazil, African people make up over 60% of the population of Brazil. Yet they go and pressure Africans to give up power to a very racist Indian opposition party, the PPP. And now as we are reading in the news, the PPP is on a witch hunt against these African people and the Indians who are in the coalition. I thank the Indians that have seen through their own kinsmen, racism, which they bring from Indian caste system to Guyana and Suriname. But these people were forced to have power in Suriname, where the Indians are only a quarter of the population. They have the presidency, they have the Attorney General. In Guyana, they have the presidency, they have the Speaker of the House, they have the Attorney General, Vice Presidency. This is an overkill. And yet the Western countries, these systematic racist countries, are not able to see the double standards they have when Africans are being killed by their puppet dictators in Africa who steal elections day in, day out, and they say nothing. But then you have Africans, multiracial governments, they don't want Africans to have empowerment. They don't want our Africans to have political or economic empowerment. So they always favor other races over the African people. Or if they favor a leader in Africa, he's the one who's killing his own people. This white systemic racism has to end in Africa and across the world. You cannot oppress people in Brazil, over 60% of African people in Brazil, and then tell the Africans to hand over power to the East Indians, who you already know are racist against Africans. This is an abomination. This is an abomination. The world needs to pay attention to this. That's why I've chosen to have this channel, calling upon the good citizens of the world, calling upon the good citizens of Africa, those that will not be bought, those that will not be puppets like the Rwandese and other African dictators, to come and save African people in Africa and save the African continent from destruction. Because there's an effort to even exterminate African people. Because I'm listening to this information from even white people in America, the good American people that are coming and saying, wait a minute, there was sterilization of women and men in childbearing age in Kenya. It was proven. So what's going on with these vaccines? So all this information and all the genocide is taking place and is being covered up, especially in my country. It hurts me that 3 million Ugandans have died, killed by the Rwandese, but yet they take us and talk about Rwanda genocide and make it look like these guys who are killing Ugandans, killing Congolese, killing Rwandese are the ones who saved the day in Rwanda genocide. Far from the truth. So, plan number 9 for Uganda. Museveni should not run. Plan number 9 for Uganda. We should not accept Besigye or Dr. Kiyingi's plan B. Plan number 9 is to organize indigenous Ugandans, if need be, through civil disobedience. Refusing to buy, refusing to sell food, blocking the roads if need be, making sure the Rwandese leave our country. I thank you for listening. Thank you. Please share this video about Plan 9. Plan 9, no Plan B, whose intention is to help the Rwandese Tutsis continue killing indigenous Ugandans, land grabbing indigenous Ugandans, and turning indigenous Ugandans into slaves in their own country, homeless in their own country. This is true. If any sincere citizen of this world wants to prove it, we have a lot of proof to show to you that this is happening in Uganda. That this is indeed happening in Uganda. Thank you for listening. May the great Almighty of our ancestors continue to guide us and protect us against evil. Goodbye.